This podcast contains adult content and themes. For a full list of our content warnings, please see our show notes. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome, my dear travelers, to the Morbid Forest. Oh, hello there, my little travelers. Oh my, what black eyes you have. Oh, and what big sharp teeth you have. Okay, you're right. That's not how it goes. Say, why don't you come with Ranger Harper, and I'll take you lot to a very special place when there's more of you. A place where the black-eyed children sing.
Stephen drove the rental car through the B roads, passing towns and villages and an abundance of fields where cows grazed. The radio was on, turned up too loud. His wife Melissa sat in the passenger seat, the map in her hand. If it had been up to Stephen, they would have taken the motorway, being accustomed to the flow of traffic, even if the Brits drove on the wrong side of the road.
Can you please turn that goddamn racket down?
She hollered into his ear. Stephen bit his tongue, holding in place the words he might have said, swallowing them back and turning them down. The car's air conditioner was busted. It didn't matter anyway. For most of their trip, it had been raining. Even now, droplets covered the glass as the wipers swayed back and forth, matching the monotony of their silence.
Why did we have to come here?
Melissa asked her husband, cigarette hanging on her lower lip. Stephen had an answer, one he dared not utter. Because that bitch you hired to evaluate our marriage like a failed Freudian prude said, we needed to spend time together, despite all the bullshit we put each other through. Despite lying in another man's bed. That's why.
Because we needed a holiday.
Stephen eventually lied.
And how was the ass end of nowhere supposed to be a goddamn holiday?
I don't know. I've never been to the ass end of nowhere. You won't let me.
How witty. Pity you haven't seen Kitty either. Not for a long time.
She replied after lighting her cigarette, turning and smiling. Her smile exuded a teasing, coquettish nature, but did not hide the hatred inside her. Stephen gripped the steering wheel tight. He wondered if he should just turn the car around and go to the nearest airport instead of trying to save a marriage that already lay dead. Their love was just a corpse, writhing with maggots, slowly masticating a still heart.
Melissa, I have paid for this trip. My book sales allowed me to fund it. And I have been driving for 4 hours through B roads because you hate motorways or highways or whatever these Brits call their long and winding roads. I'm not turning back or rising to your little jibes.
More fool you,
she told him.
More fool me,
he thought. She was right. He was a fool. When he got involved with Melissa Carpenter, a mousy-haired Scandinavian blue-eyed girl from Bangor, Maine, He never imagined his life would take the trajectory it did. He had knocked her up by the time they were both 18, a religious father forcing them to be married. It was a cliche. Melissa's father didn't own a shotgun, but it was a shotgun wedding all the same. For a while, he worked at the local factory, standing around in the dull tedium of gray, monotonous walls, packing ready meals into crates to be sold to some idiot buffoon who didn't care what they shoveled down their throat. She raised the boy in those first few years. They seemed happy while Stephen tried to get published, sending manuscripts to agents and publication companies, as well as short stories to magazines. His lack of success depressed him, but she was always a comfort. She was an angel back then. It took wealth to corrupt her into the devil. The last village they had passed was Little Salkeld, over an hour earlier. Stephen believed they would not reach their destination before checking at the hotel, and the possibility of losing their booking because of this, or being forced to pay a late fee, plagued his mind. He hated spending money, especially on what he considered a waste of his valuable time. He could have been working on his 4th novel, which he had hoped would be more well-received than his 3rd. After the success of The Still Hour in 75 and Saints Hollow in 76, 77's novel, The Harrowing, was ridiculed by critics. He hoped his 4th novel would rejuvenate his poor sales and establish him as a contemporary of Stephen King, wishing to dethrone him as the master of horror.
What is your problem?
He finally asked her.
You were the one who agreed to this.
I didn't think we would come here.
She told him.
Although I suppose it makes sense. A shithole place for a shithole husband.
Stephen's grip tightened on the wheel. He took his eyes off the road to look at her.
You bitch! Fine, you win. I'm turning this car around, we can go back home. You can get some son of a bitch lawyer.
Jesus, Stephen, look out!
Stephen turned his attention back to the road, his eyes meeting the figure in black for a split second before his face hit the glass, and he tumbled under the bumper. Stephen steered to the side of the road and turned off the gas. They sat there frozen. The night was descending, a gibbous moon blooming like a pus-filled boil. Stephen's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. The B road was quiet, almost derelict. He looked at Melissa. Melissa fumbled with the car door, stepped out, and looked back. Stephen thought she was going to throw up. Instead, she sauntered slowly towards the mass of black robes that lay in the middle of the road.
Why didn't we just stay in Maine? Why didn't we just stay there and get a divorce? She could fuck whoever she wanted. Then I could write a book about the divorce, paint her as the succubus whore from hell, and we would be even.
Stephen got out of the car. He felt vomit slowly rise in his throat, swallowing it back, tasting the bile on his tongue, corroding his taste buds. Only manslaughter. It's only manslaughter. Halfway between the car and Melissa, who at the moment was prodding the robes with her foot, Stephen became convinced he saw movement in the weeds and hedgerows that surrounded the side of the road. Moreover, he was sure he had heard giggling. Childish giggling slowly gave way to simplistic singing. He recognized the tune. He had not heard it or uttered a line of it since he was 5 years old. The song unnerved him. He did not understand why.
Stephen!
Melissa shouted, a shrill, banshee-like quality in her voice.
Get your ass over here!
When he reached her side, Stephen looked down at the mass of black fabric. It consisted of a miasmic cloak, wet and stained with dirt and blood. A beaked mask, a warped, viscid grotesque, jutted from the hood like a crow's skull. Something appeared to have gnawed at the leather, the teeth marks suggesting a big, bloody dog. However, Stephen knew of no dog that could inflict such savage tears. A murder of crows emerged in the sky, creating a romantic landscape of the current scene, with hints of the gothic creeping in. The crows spun in torpid spirals, each croaking a mocking cackle. The mass sat there, void of a body.
Where's the body?
Stephen asked her.
How should I know?
But I hit somebody.
Stephen said in a panic.
I hit somebody. I felt it. The impact against the windshield.
What does it matter?
Melissa asked.
Let's leave.
But what if he is hurt? The person I hit.
Serves him right for dressing up like that and running out onto the road.
We have to report it.
Oh, and where are we going to report it, smartass?
Melissa asked him, putting on her usual sarcastic tone.
I don't see a telephone booth around here.
The next town along, Niebolt. We can report it there. They'll have a police officer present.
And what if they arrest you for murder?
The fact that the body isn't here implies that he is still alive. And even if he dies, it's only manslaughter.
You will not do it.
Yes, I will.
Won't.
Melissa, get in the car and shut up.
He ordered, his temper getting the better of him. He looked ready to pounce. Melissa knew what this meant. Of all the times she had seen him drunk enough to know when the anger struck, the best solution was to duck. She slowly sauntered back to the car, Stephen behind her, opening the passenger side and getting in. Stephen took out the keys and entered before starting the engine, a plume of smoke erupting from the tailpipe, which swirled upwards towards a syrupy sky. In the car, Melissa fell silent. Stephen lit himself a cigarette and rolled down the window a little, flicking ash into the darkness. He was angry, tense. The experience left him in shock. However, 3 critical questions were niggling away at him.
Why was there no corpse? Why did I hear children? Why do I recognize that song?
His hair prickled, goose flesh emerging. He turned on the radio to calm his nerves. This time, Melissa did not protest that it was too loud. Johnny Cash's long black veil followed Otis Redding's Try a Little Tenderness. Stephen sang along to both songs, annoying Melissa. After Cash finished singing, a buzzing hum of static interrupted Witchy Woman by the Eagles. It was like a scattering of a fly under glass, frantically seeking its freedom. A moment of silence followed soon after, before Stephen's gooseflesh returned. The prickles on his arm were sharper and smoother than a hedgehog. The voice that suddenly spoke was that of a child.
We are the black children. We are devoted to the land.
The voice said.
We serve the field. We serve the soil. We serve the Lord God, who is lost but always remembered. We serve, we serve, we serve. We serve he who blessed the life of gods, the Cuckoo Prince.
What is this shit?
Melissa asked. Stephen said nothing.
We will vanquish those who refuse the word of the Lord.
The voice continued.
We shall smite the alcoholics, the fornicators, the homosexuals who break our just words and blaspheme in the face of God.
This shit gives me the creeps.
Melissa commented. Still, Stephen said nothing. He considered telling her about the song he had heard in the field, the childish giggling. He considered telling her about his concerns over the body, or lack thereof. He thought it, but he remained silent as the sky shifted into the shade of shadows, and the solitary crow sang its tormenting lullaby. A mile before they reached Niebolt, Stephen turned off the radio. The interference had continued throughout their drive towards the village, the childlike voice repeating the phrases that had embedded themselves in his subconscious, making him nervous. It was a shame as Outside Woman Blues by Cream started to play. He liked that song, and it seemed apt. given his current marital status. As Stephen drove closer to the village, Melissa noticed several signposts that stood by the side of the road. It reminded her of the Nebraskan Bible Belt, each of the signs delicate wording praising the Lord. Let Jesus into your heart. God is always with you. Turn your back on sin. Embrace Jesus. Melissa thought they were a little sinister and disingenuous. She had discovered the grand hypocrisy of her parents' chosen denomination when she was 16. The Lord saving some, but condemning others. She knew she was one of the others. When they approached Neibolt, the signpost, rusty, flecked with grime, which read, "You are now entering Neibolt, the place where children are truly free." Stephen felt the goose flesh crawl across his skin upon reading this, not knowing that the sickly sensation of dread he felt was becoming contagious. Melissa's stomach churned with a sluggish roar as if instructing them to turn back. The village itself might have been considered quite quaint. A pub, a local shop, a few cottages in the neat little daisy-chain rows sitting in serene silence, windows barren of light as the night draped itself around the edges of the world. Stephen thought the village of Neibolt would have at least one or two pedestrians walking along the street, or that the local pub would be filled with revelry, calling out to passerbys and luring them into debauchery of bacchanalian amusements. There was nothing but silence, pure, absolute. Locating the police station, Stephen parked and turned off the gas.
I'm staying here. I am not coming just to see you get put in cuffs.
Do what you like.
Stephen simply replied, shaking his head in disapproval, or it could have been disdain. Melissa watched him saunter into the police station. She watched his figure disappear through the door before she lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke, blurring her view momentarily in a fog of cancerous gray. She began to think of the words her mother had once uttered to her. Words that were supposed to help her make the right decision. Words that were designed to make her leave Stephen.
He's a waste of space. A total waste of space. He writes weird horror novels for illiterate buffoons. Just because he is Jewish and he is rich is no reason to stay married. All Jews are rich. Divorce him and marry a nice Christian boy.
Melissa had refused to listen to her mother or her anti-Semitic views. She did not listen to her mother, but now she was beginning to wish she had. After finishing her cigarette, she messed about with the radio, hoping to find a station where she could play the music she liked. She had never understood the appeal of rock and roll. The only music that Stephen would listen to, besides soul or country, another set of music genres she disliked. Soul, because of her parents, their prejudices rubbing off on her. Not much, but enough to make certain social events awkward. Country, she hated because she viewed it as a bunch of southern hicks having a go at playing John Wayne. Save for Patsy Cline. She had a soft spot for old Patsy. Finding a station she liked, she sat back and began to wonder if she would have to make her own way home. If she would have to leave her husband in a limey jail cell. At the least, the grounds of divorce might be easier for her to establish. Abandonment on account of her husband committing manslaughter in another country. It might make the divorce go in her favor. It might mean more money for her and the brat she had to leave in the care of her sister, whilst she took this disastrous vacation. The radio blurted out Leslie Gore, "She's a fool." She could not help but sneer a little at the candy-coated lyrics. She was far happier as soon as the song was over, and All Alone Am I by Brenda Lee bellowed out. She would have started crying had it not been for the sudden static burst that cut off the chorus before the child's voice spoke again.
We shall smite the sinners, saith the Lord. We shall smite them in temper and fury of the cuckoo prince, the one whose voice shakes the earth. We shall rid this world of the great plague of evil. We shall do so in his name.
Melissa switched off the radio. A shiver slivered up her spine. Cold air crept in from the partially open driver's side window. She rolled it up before she lit another cigarette, anxiety causing her heart to flutter in an irregular beat. Then she heard it. The words sauntered into her ear with sinister malice, as if the childish tones hid malevolence. Looking up, she watched as they emerged. Villagers, armed to the teeth with rural weapons, axes, hammers, sickles that glinted under the delicate moonlight. They advanced at a sluggish pace. Melissa pushed the manual locking mechanism, hearing the click as the villagers reached the car, every one of their faces containing unholy grins. Melissa noticed the reverence for their dress sense as the woman sported gray or dark blue long dresses with matching bonnets. At the same time, the men were attired in long coats, cravats, waistcoats, and trousers, all of them black as tar. They tried to open the door. They tried to pull her out, lashing at it with their modest weapons. Melissa screamed, hoping for Stephen to rush out and save her before they suddenly stopped. Why have they stopped? She asked herself. When they started laughing, she began to feel as if her ordeal was far from over. She saw movement in the back of the car. She assumed she was imagining it. She hoped she was imagining it. Checking the rearview mirror, she saw nothing but empty spaces. She breathed a sigh of relief, sitting back and closing her eyes, believing that nothing in the world could harm her. The hand was around her mouth before another scream could make its way up her throat. She smelt unbleached linen. The aroma only added to the terror as goose flesh covered her soft skin. She struggled. She tried to resist. The hand across her mouth had flaking, eczematic skin, tiny flakes becoming lodged at the side of her mouth. She caught a glimpse of her assailant's face. It was a boy. A boy no more than 10. Before the boy struck, he whispered in her ear.
We are the black-eyed children. We serve the land and the one true God.
Her fists clenched, her fingers numbed. She tried to shift her neck away from the serrated blade of the knife the boy held. The boy stroked her neck, a nettle savagery teasing her as sweat started to pour. She closed her eyes, and she heard them singing. The knife cut into her. Blood dripped. Tiny poppies bloomed against the fabric of her dress. She did not scream. There seemed no point. Not anymore. When Stephen reemerged from the police station, he thought that his time had been wasted. The station was deserted. When he stood at the front desk waiting for someone to appear, he spotted the sign-in book sitting on the desk, pens neatly aligned next to it. Some posters read, "Watch out, there are thieves about," or, "If you can't do the time, don't do the crime," hung on the wall. Below them, a line of helpful pamphlets meant to support victims, support groups, hotlines, shelters, lay out neatly for anyone to take. However, they were lost. Most were printed in soft pastels, comforting blues and greens, but one seemed off out of place. It was darker, thicker stock, with a glossy sheen that caught the light wrong. A pamphlet for a religious organization. Not Christian, not Jewish, something older. Pagan, maybe? The cover bore the image of an ancient god, its face twisted with animal features. A crow man, black-feathered and long-limbed, with eyes like polished ebony stones. As Stephen stared into those eyes, something cold uncoiled behind his ribs. They weren't just watching. They knew him. What startled him more was the name of the religion. The name of this movement worshipped the Crow Man, the Black-Eyed Children. He felt an overwhelming sense of dread when he read that, goose flesh returning, forming small pimples like tiny tumors. Who are the black-eyed children? He thought. He walked towards the car, opened the driver's seat, and hopped inside, slamming the door shut. When he spotted the empty seat beside him, he cursed. Where's she gone off to? Has she left me? Decided to try and pick up a lift and head back to the States. He lit a cigarette before turning on the engine, just so he could crack the window open and turn on the radio. As he smoked, Chain of Fools by Aretha Franklin chiming out of the speakers, he became a little concerned. He needed to know where Melissa had got to. I could leave her, he thought. I could leave her here with no way back home. Meet up with some limey broad, fuck her. I can make passionate love to her in a hotel room. Or I could pay off a hooker. They have them here. A hooker who I could pay to cease her laughter, stop with the fake orgasms, cease her criticisms towards my manhood. Bliss. After Aretha ended her soulful bellow that rattled his heart, the next song was Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath. It felt like an odd song to pick, especially after the glory of Aretha. 3 minutes into the song, the static returned. A blare of fuzz caught off the music before the voice returned.
The hour is approaching. All black-eyed children must abstain from fornicating until the ceremony is complete. By orders of the Prince. We must cease making life till the death has been satisfied.
Stephen's hand tensed around the steering wheel. He extinguished his cigarette and wondered why this scared him so. He asked why the interference, the absence of Melissa, and the black-eyed children had woven into his thoughts, creating a worrisome dread to which he was not accustomed.
All has been prepared save the final piece, but the matter is in hand.
Stephen's grip tightened. A cold shudder crept across his neck. He looked outside, seeing the emptiness of the village. A creepy hollowness that needed to be filled. He could not shake the notion that in between the darkness, there were eyes upon him, observing his mind and consuming his soul.
It is time, dear children. It is time for you to act.
They emerged from the darkness. The villagers, like messengers of the dusk. No, he thought, not messengers. Acolytes. Each of them varied in size and height. Fat, skinny, average, rail-thin, bloated, tall, short, somewhere in the middle. One of them must have been pushing 8 feet easily, built like a brick shithouse and carrying a scythe big enough to harvest the dead. Other villages were suitably armed. Rural weapons, hammers, hatchets, knives, and of course, sickles. Many grasped sickles, fondling them with all the religious reverence of a Catholic priest grasping at his rosaries. He began to wish that he had packed his Colt 45. As they stood there, others joined him. They slipped out of the crooked doorways of their houses, shuffled in from narrow lines, and slid out the handful of side streets that stitched the village together like a scar. Both of Stephen's hands now gripped the steering wheel. He made a single swift movement to turn on the engine before revving up the car. The scent of burning rubber filled the air, wafting through the partially open window. Sensing what he was about to do, they converged on the vehicle. Hatchets and hammers shattered glass under the rise and fall. When 2 villagers attacked the driver's side door with axes, chipping the red paint, another ripped off the left wing mirror. Stephen, his heart pounding towards his throat, revved the engine one last time. The car shook with a metallic snarl. Trembling with pent-up threnody of combustion, he clenched the steering wheels, his knuckles a pallid hue. Then he charged. The car lurched forward in a cacophony of screeches, cold steel rupturing through the horde with bone-jarring force. Their farming tools thudded against the frame, antique axes and blunt hammers discarded in a sudden surge of agony. As Stephen rammed into another of the villagers, he noticed, through shards of glass and blood, that he was gazing into the lost ocean eyes of a child, no more than 6. The boy groaned.
A child? How can he be a child? Why would anyone do this to a child?
Stephen did not have time to answer that question. The villagers continued to advance. Stephen fixed his gaze ahead before looking back at the boy. God, please forgive me, he thought, the words crawling through his brain like a fever dream, not spoken, just felt. A whispered prayer. He revved the engine and sped up, the boy tumbling off the shattered windshield and under the wheels. Stephen heard the distinct crack as the boy's skull was caught between the spinning wheel and the hard, unfeeling ground. The road ahead of him was cut with shadow and fog. The villagers continued to spill out like an infection, leaping up from the gutter and vaulting nearby fences. Some ran in unnatural, spasmodic gaits, as if their joints had been strung together by the hands of a cruel creator who contorted their flesh into savage bone and grizzle. Still, Stephen punched through. Each collision felt like a singular cut, a vivisection of his soul. Shattered glass and a scream, the warm dash of blood. Freedom, if he could call it freedom, was not clean. It was dirty, eating away at his insides. He wished Melissa were with him. He needed her to be with him. They got her. Did they take Melissa? The thought remained as he made a quick turn off-road, cutting across a field towards the forest.
I must go back for her. I must.
He made that promise to himself. He could hardly believe it, but it was a promise he intended to keep. He didn't know that the promise was already broken, stillborn in silence, with only the devil to answer his prayer. By the breaking of dawn, the car had run out of gas. Stephen had pulled over as Born to Run died a slow death on the radio. He had run out of cigarettes. He was hungry. His lips were cracked. He longed for water or a cold beer to quench his thirst. Staggering out of the driver's seat, he wandered around the forest as the sunlight broke through. A cold, crisp crackling the ground with tiny fragments of frost. As he staggered, he thought of Melissa. He thought of their wedding day, back when they were young and happy. He thought of them dancing to that awful song by Barry Manilow, her taste in music being equal to her taste in literature. The romantic novel she consumed being filled with sentimental claptrap he always refused to allow in his life. He was beginning to regret it. He was starting to regret not holding her closer, not kissing her soft lips, not letting his soul be one with hers. A union between husband and wife.
She may be dead. She could be dead. And I never got the chance to fix it. To tell her I was sorry.
Tears swelled up like balloons, falling onto the icy ground, creating an odor which was pleasant to the nostrils. Still, he dismissed it, not wanting even a semblance of joy in his moment of despair. Exiting the forest, he found himself in the middle of a field. Clean-cut grass contained patches of brown frost, the snow-white radiance replaced with mud. He shivered as the air planted unwanted kisses on the nape of his neck. He inhaled, filling his lungs before letting out an exhalation that was closer to a sigh. He stumbled through the field, his legs aching. He became concerned in case they were waiting for him. The villagers. A trap filled with malevolence. As he felt his legs begin to tire, his knees close to buckling and his eyes dying for a moment of sleep, he turned a corner and his eyes bulged.
Melissa?
Melissa was naked. She had been folded like a baby. Beetle, her knees jammed hard against her chest. Arms wrapped tight around them. Her body shivered, trembling with the kind of cold that went beyond temperature. Bramble thorns were woven into her skin, deliberate ritualistic. They clung like black talons, biting into her flesh like the devotion of a cruel lover. Her skin peeled in places unfinished. Raw nerves sparked beneath the surface. Some of the thorns had snapped, lodging under her skin like splinters. Her blood didn't run. It bloomed like fat rose blossoms. Her breathing was shallow, stuttering. The air tasted of old wood and mildew.
Melissa!
He repeated, voice breaking. Her neck was wound up in thorns. Stephen gasped. He recoiled at the sight of her face. Streams of crimson gushed downward, snaking across her cheek with a sleek, glistening trail. The whites of her eyes became flooded by radiant droplets, shimmering like polished rubies. Her gaze was vacant, as if her soul had been boiled away, leaving only a hollow shell. Atop her head sat a crooked crown, a forced grim parody of royalty. Jagged bones had been driven into her scalp, hammered in with brutal reverence. Tiny jawbones dangled between the black talons, teeth locked in an eternal scream, bound by cords of black sinew. Each puncture oozed, the crown rooting inside her like a paradise. A wide, meaty maw gaped in along her forehead. Fleshy lips split open to reveal a throb of exposed tissue, pulsing a slow, demonic rhythm. Embedded in the wound was a thick, rusted nail, surrounded by blood, creating a dark, vermilion halo.
Melissa!
It was then he heard the giggling. Whipping himself around, the villagers greeted him. His muscles tensed, the children started to sing.
Here we go round the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush on the pools and frosty morning.
As they advanced, Stephen bolted. Adrenaline surged, panic pumping through his veins. But he didn't make it far. Not even a full stride before they were on him. Hands seized him, dozens of them, cold and grasping, fingers curling into his clothes, his hair, his flesh. He tried to fight them off, a cornered animal thrashing with fists and kicks, which only amused them. As they closed in, coiling around like snakes, their grips tightened until he could not move. He felt something sharp slide across his neck. Not cutting. Not yet. Their weapons scraped across his arms. Tools of bone and iron lazily kissed his chest. And then came the hammer. It crashed into his right knee, swift. Bone snapped. Something shifted inside. Stephen's screams tore free from his throat, raw and ragged. The second blow followed a mere second later, slamming into his other knee. His scream barely had time to form before it was stifled, a dozen tiny hands smothering him. Fingers dug into his cheeks. His legs gave out, folding inwards. He wanted to vomit, but his stomach could only churn out a gurgled protest at the horror, at the pain. He looked at Melissa. He gazed at the jagged halo of talons and tiny jawbones fused to her flesh. He began to weep.
Oh, hail the Cuckoo Prince! Oh, hail the Cuckoo Prince!
The villagers chanted, the words creating a cacophony of convulsions as Stephen shivered, the goose flesh returning. When the Cuckoo Prince emerged, dressed in black robes and the Corvine mask, scythe in hand, the ghostly apparition which had started the whole godforsaken mess, Stephen tried to scream. He tried to avert his gaze from the Cuckoo Prince's sight as he approached him, removing his mask, revealing the disfigured, abominable face that lay beneath. The Cuckoo Prince simply smiled, and Stephen saw the face of God before the hammer fell, whilst the black-eyed children sang.
Here we go round the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush, across the mulberry.
At the next village meeting, Reverend Jordan Drelincourt sat beside P.C. Billings as Rosemary Tukes and Sarah Marsh sat in silence, knowing they could not speak until they had been addressed. The village hall was packed. All the children and their parents were there, jolly and cheerful, each bearing behind malignant eyes a happiness at their murderous endeavors. When Drelincourt stood up, silence descended.
My siblings, it has been another good year, and our Lord God has collected his harvest. The hour is over, the ceremony is complete, and the sinful strangers have been sent to be judged by the Almighty. We can rejoice, rejoice,
he declared. There was a round of applause. Drelincourt held his hands up. Silence fell once more.
Our God was with us in the fields. He guided us once more, and he sensed that a good few of our sisters are carrying the next generation in their fruitful wombs. However, the Cuckoo Prince has sensed that one among you has not yet laid with her husband and conceived a beautiful child of God. Molly Andrews, please step forward.
Molly, a girl with pigtails no more than 16, stepped forward. She was chided by the other villagers, who uttered disappointed insults at her before Drelincourt calmed their furor. Drelincourt, smiling, knelt at Molly's height. He placed a hand on her shoulder.
Molly, my dear, why have you yet to do your duty? Why have you refused to conceive a child with Isaac?
Because he is my brother.
Molly spat back with venom. There was another uproar. Drelincourt calmed them with a wave of his hand.
We are all brothers and sisters, dear child,
Drelincourt reminded her.
and let us not forget, he is also your uncle.
How could I forget, Father?
Molly asked him, and she was not referring to his clerical title. Drelincourt smiled.
If you have not conceived a child by the next ceremony, the Cuckoo Prince has decreed it shall be you and any other childless wretch we sacrifice. And in case you need a reminder of what it entails, just cast your eyes behind me.
Molly did not do so. She already knew what stood there. The thorns were sagging beside their bodies, flesh gnawed off. Crowns of bone entrapped them into demonic reverence, the dried blood leaving a sickly scent. Stephen and Melissa were dead. Mere corpses attract insects, maggots writhing in their stomachs. They were dead, just like the love they had lost.
This has been a Morbid Forest production, and on this week's episode you've heard Where the Black-Eyed Children Sing, written by R.J. Butler, with narration by Mike Castoro as your narrator, Havish Ravipati as Stephen, Maddie Girouard as Melissa, Thomas Edmonds as Reverend Jordan Drelincourt, Naomi Richards as Molly. Your villagers were Milo Machin, Dakota James Weller, Sebastian Christopher, Hannah Rivera, and Amber McCulloch, and with special guests Story, River, and Sterling Alexander as the Black-Eyed Children. Story editing and audio production by Naomi Richards. Music and sound effects provided by Epidemic Sound. Our theme music was created by Blakmoth. Follow us on X or Twitter if you're old school, Instagram, Discord, Threads to stay up to date on all the happenings within the forest. Interested in more morsels of the forest? Then join our Patreon. As a faithful traveler, you'll receive exclusive access to early episode releases, access to all bonus content, and deals on merch for just $3 a month. That's patreon.com/themorbidforest. Can you spare a moment to help our travelers in need? For just 1 review or 5 stars, you can help a fellow traveler in desperate need of a horror podcast. Ratings and reviews are the best way to find lost travelers out there. So head to your favorite podcast platform today to assist a fellow traveler in finding their path to the Morbid Forest. And with that, we'll see you next time, travelers, on the Morbid Forest.